Question 52. Explain the foreign policy of British as a consequence of the First War of Indian Independence on the East India Company. 2 marks, or what impact did the uprising of 1857 have on foreign policy of British? 2 marks. Answer dash. 6. Foreign policy dash. The policy fulfilled 2 aims of the British. I. Protection of its Indian Empire, and 2. Expansion of British economic and commercial interests in Asia and Africa. Example, India under the British had to fight many wars with her neighbors like Nepal and Burma. Indian soldiers lost their lives and Indian taxpayers had to bear the cost of the war. Question 53. Explain the policy of divide and rule of the British as a consequence of the First War of Indian Independence on the East India Company. Or, 2 marks. What impact did the uprising of 1857 have on the policy of divide and rule of the British? 2 marks. Answer dash. 7. Policy of divide and rule dash. The British continued to follow this policy in the following way, turning dash. The people against the princes. Caste against a caste. Province against a province, and Hindus against the Muslims, which ultimately led to the partition of India at the time of her independence in 1947. This was done as Muslims were deprived of patronage in education, businesses and services, and Hindus were given preferential treatment. It was a deliberate attempt so that the two communities never come together and pose a threat to the British rule in India. Question 54. Explain the economic exploitation of India done by the British as a consequence of the First War of Indian Independence on the East India Company. Or, 4 marks. What impact did the uprising of 1857 have on the economic exploitation of India done by the British? Or, 4 marks. How did the uprising of 1857 shift the era from territorial expansion to economic expansion in India by the British? Or, 4 marks. How did the end of the East India Company's rule bring in grave economic perils in India? 4 marks. Answer dash. 8. Economic exploitation dash. The uprising of 1857 shifted the era from territorial expansion to economic expansion in the following manner dash. 1. India was turned into a typical colonial economy, exporting raw material and importing finished goods. 2. The salary and allowances of the Secretary of State and members of the Indian Council, the civil servants and military officers were a large drain on the country's resources. 3. Peasants were impoverished under the British government, thus the Indigo peasants of Bihar revolted on a large scale in 1866-68. 4. Rural artisan industries such as handicrafts, spinning and weaving had collapsed. 5. The British had invested their surplus capital in India in railways, plantation, coal mines, jute mills, shipping, etc., for which Indians had to pay heavy interests and dividends on this invested capital.